Hello. So I made a dress for the 2023 Geekbounding challenge inspired by Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And what you are about to watch is the journey of me making it. I documented the process as I went along, sometimes narrating it, sometimes not. Most of it was me talking to me so that I would be able to go back and look at that footage and learn from it and to improve my dress as I went along and started making the final product. But there's enough of it here that I feel like I can compile it into one big final video to show you how I made this dress, so let's go ahead and jump in. To start, these are the pictures I submitted to the judges. The first are the reference pictures of the character that I was inspired by, and the second is a sketch of my vision for my outfit. The biggest thing I was worried about in the beginning was the mantle, so that's what I tackled first. And I have enough footage of me trying to figure this out that it could be its own video, but all you need to know is that I did make it work. So my original design has a really cool twist on the waist, which looks great as a drawing, but became pretty hard to make out of real fabric. I had turned to the internet for help for a pattern, but there was nothing out there that was exactly what I needed. So I learned the basics of how this style of dress works, and then I adapted it to work for my needs. I'm not going to waste your time showing footage or talking about all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this pattern work. I played with this fabric again and again, but I think I finally got to a place where I'd be confident enough to move on to my actual real mock-up. But to be honest, at this point I was pretty sick of looking at this pattern and this fabric, so I decided to switch gears for a little while and start trying to figure out my cape. For the cape, there was no reason to mess around with any pattern. It is just a full circle, so I just took my measurements, cut out 2 half circles, and was good to go. And I was able to find some cheap orange and yellow fabric for my mock-up, so I could actually start getting an idea of what this outfit might look like. And I'm glad I did, because on the shelf these colors actually looked really good, but then in large quantities and in different light I realized they didn't, so that let me know ahead of time that I really needed to pay attention to what shades I was buying. I am actually very happy with it. I am glad that I did do a full circle because I was debating whether a half circle would be enough, but I don't think that'll do the trick. A full circle's worth of fabric. Anyway, yeah, right now it's just pinned to the actual mannequin. I need to just put a binding or a bias tape or something up there to make it all super sturdy together. But yeah, that's what it looks like right now. And oh, that fabric, by the way, way too heavy. I am going to find some other kind of material. I'm going to need to find something lighter, hopefully something opaque. If it has to be sheer, so be it. I would really like for it to be opaque, but I'm going to have to find some other material for that because that polyester is way too heavy. I really struggled figuring out how to make the dress, the cape, and the mantle all connect together and become one cohesive unit. Main stress point being how to attach the cape. Did I make it something that would be completely detachable and just add it on with hooks and eyes or Velcro or something like that? Or did I need to sew it strongly onto the dress or the mantle? And another huge thing to consider was how I was going to get in and out of this dress. If I sewed something directly to the back, would I be able to have a zipper? Same thing goes for the mantle. These were all questions that I had to sort through to figure out what to do for my final one. Alright, so I have just done some stuff. This is my new one. This is hopefully going to be my final pattern. I'm going to cut it here at the waist, have my top and bottom, do the whole slit thing again to flare it out. I'm going to basically just copy what I did on the old one, just make it nice and prettier. And then I think what I'm going to do is, I think I have mentioned that I want to do a tulle layer over the top of the fabric layer to give it a little bit more depth. And so I am going to make at least the top part, actually both parts probably twice. And what I'm going to do is for the tulle layer, I'm going to flare it out even more. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I think I have all my pattern pieces done. So this is the front top of the dress. And so what I did was I took my normal pattern piece, found the spot where the scrunch will be, flared it out so there will be extra fabric, and that's that. But I also made another one that I believe I'm going to be using for the tulle layer that will be on top of that one because I wanted this one to have a little more fabric. I think it have a little bit more scrunch than the other one, and so I just added like, what, 5 more inches I think onto that one, so it is more widespread out than this one. And I actually did the exact same thing for the skirt. Here's the skirt pattern. That's the waist up there. That'll be the scrunch point, and it's swooping down. And I've flared it out from the original pattern. And then I took that again and just spread it out a little bit more for the tulle layer that will be on top of that, so there will be that extra fabric. And then the only other piece, pattern piece that I have is going to be this one, and this is the back piece on the bottom because it is kind of tulip, you know, petal style, so this will be the one that's underneath. No need for a ton of bunching. I just put the dart there in the middle to maybe kind of be like the others. But yeah, so these will be overlapping. Yeah, and that's all of my pattern pieces, I believe. Many days worth of measuring and cutting, but I think I'm ready to attack my actual fabric. Something important about working with circles is after you have cut them out, you need to let them hang for a couple of days because the parts that are on a bias will relax and lengthen. And so after you do that, then you can go in and trim it. And because this cape is so long, I was cutting off chunks as large as 3 inches or more in the 4 places where the bias hung. I took a break from fabric for a little while and started thinking about my arrows because I didn't want that sneaking up on me right at the last minute. My initial inspiration came from elven headdresses, that really delicate wire design, because I wanted my piece to extend beyond my hairline because Aang's arrow goes across his whole head, and so that's where I started. Alright, so here's what I've been doing for the headpiece, the arrow headpiece so far. So this was my very first attempt just to get an idea of what the heck I was doing, just to kind of get a feel for how wire works and just to find the general shape. So I knew this wasn't exactly what I was going for, but it gave me some good ideas. It let me know that this was too many beads. The wire is just too thick, I think. It's not as delicate as I wanted it to be. And so I learned a lot of things doing this one. But the problem was this wire is just too thick and bulky, but if I go any thinner, I don't think it will be as rigid and sturdy and strong as I need it to be. It'll be flimsy and flexible if I go any smaller. So that's a hurdle I actually am still working on, but that's something I learned doing that. Now, I had an idea, this one I never really finished, but it kind of shows you the idea I had of doing like designs inside of it. That's what I wanted to do, was do really delicate bead designs inside of this whole empty space. I discovered with this trial that probably just isn't going to work as I wanted it to, as I saw it in my head. This wire, this is just floral wire that I had laying around. Obviously I would use silver wire or something, not something so dark that would stand out. But anyway, that was another idea that I went with. Now, after trying this, my husband actually told me what he had visualized for me to do, which was something, this is completely ruined, so it's not a good visualization, but to make it more, give it some more life and movement by using like chains or something. Now, this isn't exactly what he had in mind either, and it isn't for me either, but it gave me an idea of kind of what he might have been talking about and another direction that I might be able to go, which is using something more dangly and flexible to give it some life and movement. And I actually kind of like that idea, and I think I wanted to do the decorative wire design, but this might be a more practical, interesting way to go. So I think I'm going to pursue this for a little while and see where it takes me. So here we are again. Here's what I think is actually a pretty promising route. But so I used the chain, and what I did is I looped them up and put little beads in between each loop to help keep it spaced out, because that was a huge problem the first time I tried to do it, was them just all clumping on top of each other. So those little beads are helping space it out, which is great. I looped by counting in 4s. So I would count down 4, loop it, count down 8, loop it, 16, loop, and so forth. The longest one is 44 at the moment. That is what I am trying for this first attempt. I pursued this design for a while longer, but eventually realized that it was just not going to work for many reasons that I won't bother listing off here. I don't want to waste your time because I didn't end up going down this path. So even though it looks kind of cool here, I was back to square one, and I will worry about that later. I'm going to focus on the other parts of the dress for now. All right, now it is time to talk a little bit about this very long flounce part that goes around the entire hem of the bottom of the dress. So it took quite a bit of math because I needed to know the amount of length that it touched it, because then I needed to do the math for how wide I could get it, because a full circle will give me the most amount of space on the very bottom hem, but I needed to know how big to make this circle
so I would be able to get the entire length of the inside of the hem. I thought I was going to have to do 2 circles or like a circle and a half circle, but turns out I can do it in 1 full circle and a tiny little bit more. So I found the measurements for the 3 sections, the 2 petal parts and the back came out to 74 inches. Okay, that was going to have to be this length. The inner circle was going to have to be 74 inches. I measured how long this length would have to be. I measured where the bottom of the dress was, and I wanted in the back for it to go down to my feet with no heels. I wanted it to go to the floor. That was 18.5 inches. And so over here, I measured in 18.5 inches from 29, and that gave me a radius of 10.5 inches, which then a radius of 10.5 inches would give me 65 inches in circumference for the middle circle. Well, 65 inches for that when I needed 74 inches. So that's nearly it. I'm only going to have to cut out another small piece to fill in the rest of that number, which, you know, would be 18.5 inches to fill that all up. Okay, so there's the flounces bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. I think I'll be able to cut out the base layer and the tulle layer at the same time because I'm pretty sure this is all the same amount. I don't think I'm cutting out any extra fabric. So there's my next project.
So this outfit is inspired by Aang, who is an airbender, and how I wanted to incorporate that was having my fabrics be very flowy, and I was afraid a bulky hem on the bottom of this yellow dress would prevent that. So my little trick is to go around the edge with a lighter, because polyester is plastic, so it melts the end and prevents it from fraying. And on the topic of this being inspired by Aang, another trait of his I wanted to incorporate into this dress was his simplicity. Because Aang is a monk, I did not want this outfit to become flashy or gaudy in any way, which was a challenge because the category I was entering into was formal evening red carpet. So it still had to be impressive, and that was a challenge I constantly dealt with through the whole design and construction process.
Alright, I am in a bit of a tricky spot. I just finished the huge flounce that will go on the bottom of the dress. I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out. Might put some fishing wire on the bottom to get some bigger rolls, but here's where my issue is attaching it to the dress. Now this is my old mock-up, but it gives you the idea. So this is most of it, but the full circle, it wasn't quite right, so I did have to cut out an extra section to finish off, you know, filling in the length of it. This little piece I decided is going to be this front bit because this is so tricky. I feel like this flounce needs to be sewn on first before doing all the twisting and connecting because it is part of it. It is, you know, sewn in there and it's kind of a big part of the dress. And that's, I think, how I did this one, and then it was already attached and blah, blah, blah. But this is one full piece, and I don't know if I want to attach to the entire thing before doing all the twisting. Well, I can't because the back won't be on yet. And so what I want to say is I will attach that little piece in this front to do all of that stuff. And then when it's all done, then add the rest of the flounce. You know what? I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens. I think what I'm going to have to do is just sew them together and sew them on the inside and just hope it covers up all those raw edges. Well, we'll see. I'm about to cut out the actual dress parts and put it all together here soon, but I think it's gonna turn out pretty good. I'm excited to see how this will all come together. All right, so still working on my mock-up. What I am doing right now is the tulle layer I am putting over top of the base layer, pinning it all around the edges, and I'm going to baste them together. I have already finished 2 of the panels. I just have 2 more to go, and on this one and the next one I'm going to do, I have done the gather of those extra 5 inches that I put in. I like it. Right now I'm wondering if it's enough. I think it might be. I like how it's looking, but we'll see, of course, once it's all put together and twisted. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, is basting all of the pieces before I attach them all together to each other.
Pro tip, as soon as you cut out any round concave pieces, such as a neckline or the inside of a circle, you will want to do a stay stitch on it immediately after so that it does not stretch, warp, or fray.
All right, so here's what I'm thinking now that I'm going to attach these two pieces together. So here's the waist of each one, and this is the scrunch, of course, and so these two circle areas need to get sewn together first. This is where it gets attached first, are the two curvy angles, and then the waist gets attached later. I think what I'm going to do, I think what I'm going to try to do is a French seam, because every single trial that I have done, some of the raw edge shows once you do the twist, and it just occurred to me that maybe if I do a French seam, that can be hidden better. So that's what I'm going to try to do for this mock-up, is this seam, do it as a French seam. Also, because this is a one twist, obviously they are facing different ways. So once it is sewn and I twist one, both sides will be the right side facing front.
And making this twist look good and presentable was a way bigger challenge than I ever could have predicted.
And here it is, finally in a position to where it can be put on a mannequin. So I haven't documented it in a while, and that's because most of what I've been doing has been fairly standard stuff. I inserted an invisible zipper on this side, which is the first real true invisible zipper I've ever done. I'm so proud of it and happy with it. And then I closed up the sides, closed up that side. So now it is tubular. I just have to close up the tops and finish the edge around the neckline and shoulders. And then it only has this one flounce on it, of course. And so I just have to put all the rest of the flounces on. But yeah, oh, it looks so good. I'm so happy to finally see it on the mannequin. Okay, I'm gonna finish up the top, and then I realized something I didn't think about is, since the zipper is on the side and not the back, this is not stretchy. I am going to make sure that that hole is going to be big enough for my head to fit in. I didn't think about that before making this entire dress. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
And then I finally had my real first try on that was off of the mannequin and on me. I learned a lot of things. One of the biggest things was the top was just too loose and I would need to tighten that up. But it was amazing, and I knew what I needed to get to work on next.
Alright, so important announcement as far as closures go. So the reason the dress is like this right now is because it was all closed up. I had a zipper on the side seam keeping it together. But what made me unpick that side is because I realized the armholes need to be lower, and so I had to remove the zipper for that. But I also realized I am not able to get this thing on and off, because the head is too small and it needs to expand and open somehow. And so what really makes the most sense is putting the zipper down the center back, which means I will cut this open and insert a zipper. Now, why I didn't want to do that is because I was intending on putting the cape directly on this dress. I was going to put some interfacing in here, some sturdy kind, and sew the cape on here to be a part of the dress. But if there's a zipper there, I can't do that. So I think my plan now is I will put a zipper here. I think that's my only choice. And then I think in my head, my plan right now is to attach the cape to the orange mantle. I think I'm going to do that and then just be tricky with how to make that sturdy. I think I actually might put Velcro on this dress and Velcro on the cape or something like that. But as of right now, I am going to now slice this back panel in half and insert a zipper. I don't have any seam allowance for that, so it might make the dress a little bit snug, but it is what it is. Alright, so for preparation for cutting, I went ahead and stitched a basing stitch around everywhere I'm going to cut. And so this middle seam where I'm going to open it up, put some stitches all around the shoulder where it's going to be cut. I put those in so it will not fall apart after I cut it. Also, I threw in some lines on the back here so I'll know when I put the zipper in where to line it up a little bit better, hopefully. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. So now I will go ahead and cut it. I am finally to a point in this project that I've been looking forward to for a long time, which is getting the huge flounce on the bottom of the skirt finally attached to the hem of the dress. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It looks so good. But pretty clearly, I'm going to have to shorten this front part because in my reference picture, it is much more dramatic of a opening. You can see my legs pretty clearly in my reference picture, you know, my submission picture. So I am going to trim whatever length this is. I don't know, I think it was like 15 inches or something. That was this side part, because then it swoops down and the longest part is 18 inches if I remember correctly. So this part, which is like 15 or 14, I am going to trim down to like 8. This seam, in my head, it hung straight down. Yeah, it doesn't. So I might have to do something about that.
Spoiler alert, that flounce that goes around in the final one, I did not do that small piece up in the front because it did just end up looking really ugly. So my final one, it is one continuous flounce around the entire bottom, and I figured out another way to get it all tucked up in that knot in the front. Another way.
Right, here is the mantle in a mock-up form being done. The whole thing feels a little bit roomy in the shoulders and up top. Kind of feels like a shell just sitting on top of me, but that might be what I want. I think I'm actually pretty happy with the length. I just did a quick fake hem and it makes it look nice and crisp, and I think it is how low I would want it to be, so I think that's good. Collar isn't too bad. I wanted another 1/2 inch taller, but yeah, okay. So there is the mantle.
And here is the mantle with the cape attached. This was mostly a test just to see how it flowed. So there's a bit of a time jump here. I didn't do any documenting for a while, and in that time, I made my real dress with my real fabric. And here's what that looks like. One of the biggest differences between this dress and my mock-up is the flounces. There was a very happy accident that occurred. The dimensions were different between my mock-up fabric and this one, and because of it, I had to make 3 full circles for the flounces, which actually gave it the effect from my drawing and the one that I actually wanted. It looks much fuller and I love it. And one little thing that I did that seems small but actually made a pretty big difference was not having the flounce go all the way up on the underside, because it makes it bulky and interferes with the slim silhouette. And then late in the game here, my husband gave me a brilliant idea to put a trim around the bottom of the cape. First, I just put some on one side so that I could get some clear footage of what it looked like side by side with and without. This idea added a ton of stress, but honestly, it was necessary. I needed something to give this outfit to take it to the next level and make it more interesting, and this did the trick. My initial plan for the cape was to have it be very light and wispy, and I was afraid that the trim was going to weigh it down. But you'll see by the end that didn't even matter, because the fabric I ended up getting for my cape was a lot heavier anyway, and the trim was such a great addition. I am very glad he had that idea. My arrow designs were really starting to stress me out. I was stewing over what to do, and I was actually starting to panic. But one day, I got inspiration. There's something that face painters do, and I'm a face painter so I know about it, but I've never tried it, which is they make little gem clusters that they then attach to the faces that they're painting. And so I took that idea and ran with it. First, I figured out the shape that the arrows were going to need to be. Then I decided which gems I wanted to use and lay them out in the pattern that I wanted. And then on some plastic, you put down fabric glue and then layer gems inside of that and wait for it to dry. And doing it this way actually helped solve a big concern I had had from the beginning with all of my different methods, which was how to attach these to myself. I simply used skin-safe adhesive, which face painters use all the time, to attach it to my head and hands so that they would match. This was veering pretty far away from what my initial vision had been, but it did fit my needs better for this project. And unlike all of my other designs that I had been considering, these ones were not flimsy and easily portable. And they glow in the dark, just like Aang's tattoos. I searched through many stores looking for an orange fabric that would work for my cape and mantle, to no avail. I could not find anything that was the right weight, texture, color, and so I had to break out of my comfort zone and order some online. The risk with that is you never really know what you're getting until it comes, but it was a blessing in disguise. The fabric that I got was perfect. It was a lot heavier than I was expecting, but I think that actually worked really well. It played with the air in a very different way, but a really spectacular way, better than a really light, wispy fabric would. But that did create a problem. Because it was heavier than I expected, I wasn't able to use hooks and eyes or Velcro or any of the other attachment methods that I had been considering. But then I got inspiration again to make a harness to hold everything together. I repurposed an old belt, then made some more very strong cotton straps, And in combination with my corset, that is what held everything in place.
And the harness has a bunch of snaps on the shoulder. It has 3 of them, which then snap to the dress. This is the main anchor that keeps this all together, and so it will not shift at all.
Oh, and what kept the cape in place was Velcro. There were 2 strips, one in the front, one in the back, on the dress and mantle, and that's what prevented it from sliding back and choking me. It's honestly a miracle I didn't break a needle here, where the mantle, cape, and Velcro are all on top of each other. The deadline was soon approaching and I was feeling the pressure. This is me trying everything on for the first time and it felt so good. I didn't have the shoes and the arrows on yet, but having the dress and cape together was amazing. I still did a few little tweaks after this, but it felt so good to see what it looked like all together. Another whole part of this outfit that I barely documented at all is the shoes. I wanted to do something to make the shoes more special and formal, and I decided to do arrows because I thought it would tie it into my head and hands and be able to match that and make it much more cohesive because that's the only blue and sparkly stuff on me. And it also plays into the character design because Aang has arrows on his hands, head, and feet. So I played around with the design, made a few different versions, and did some video tests to help me decide which one I would like best. I finally decided on the ones that creep up my feet a little bit and hot glued those on. And another idea that I think really paid off was adding little individual stick-on gems that worked their way up my foot, made it even more impressive, and there were a lot of people at the competition who wanted to see my shoes and really loved the design. And that was it. It was done. I was able to wear it to the competition, I had a great time, and I actually won the Audience Choice Award. And wouldn't you know, it was the cape that turned people's heads. That fabric is what impressed a lot of people. The shimmer on the outside, the weight of it, all of the judges said that they wanted to touch the cape. People were very impressed with that, and I know that's what gave me the edge in actually winning the award. And I'm very glad with how my arrows turned out. I had people come up to me from the very back of the audience saying they could see them sparkling. So even though they were quite different than I had intended, I love how they turned out. I was so grateful for this experience. As stressful as it was, I'm glad to have done it. I learned so much. So there's the making of my Aang dress for the 2023 Geekbounding Challenge. I want to give a huge shout out to my husband Mark. He helped me so much. He was so supportive in everything I did, always encouraging me and taking our kids for extended periods of time while I just went and sewed. And also, he gave me so many amazing ideas that I did incorporate into the dress that really just took it to the next level. So thank you so much, Mark, for all your help and support. And thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.